need more pressure on that line.
Get the ladder position now.
The scent of
Watch the collapse
gasoline
zone.
and
Pull back.
scorched timber still clung to my suit jacket. That's how close I was to the fire, when Priscilla Vance swaggered into my courtroom like she was collecting an overdue debt, not facing a felony arraignment. That same vacant, utterly psychotic smile, the one she'd worn while she dumped industrial stripper on my wife's favorite perennial garden, the same grin she flashed when she systematically bankrupted half our neighbors, stealing upwards of $90,000 under the guise of community improvement fees. But this suburban terrorist, this HOA queen, made one single catastrophic miscalculation. She never bothered Googling the man she decided to destroy. I'm not some random overworked software engineer she could bully into abandoning his home, you see. I'm District Judge Elias Vance, and she just committed arson against the one man in this district with the literal judicial power to absolutely annihilate her existence. 18 months of psychological warfare, culminating in one moment of beautiful, cold reckoning. She thought burning down my house would silence me and eliminate the evidence, but all she did was hand me the match to torch her entire criminal empire. What would you do with that kind of power? Seriously. Comment your revenge strategy below. But let me back up. Tell you how a respected federal prosecutor ended up watching his daughter's bully face a 30-year sentence. 2 years ago, life was, well, it was damn near perfect even after the cancer. I was Elias, just Eli to my friends, a 20-year federal prosecutor who'd put away everyone from high-roller crypto scammers to corrupt state senators. My 14-year-old daughter, Piper, and I lived in our old Victorian house on Cypress Lane in Ethelred Estates. It wasn't perfect, the paint was peeling, the porch creaked like an old ship, but God, it was everything we had left. That morning, coffee still tasted better in my late wife Clara's chipped mug. Piper's laugh still echoed from the old oak tree swing I'd hung up the day we moved in. Even 5 years after Clara passed, every single floorboard held memories I wasn't ready to let go of. I was the neighborhood's unofficial problem solver. I coached Piper's competitive soccer team, helped old Mr. Chen with his taxes, kept a meticulous lawn that, made the other dads a little jealous. Ethelred Estates was paradise for people like us. Young families, working professionals, veterans, people just trying to give their kids stability. It was the kind of place where neighbors mowed each other's lawns without asking and brought you a casserole without needing a reason. The best part? Our HOA was a fossil. It existed on paper from 1978 but hadn't enforced a single rule since the Berlin Wall fell. We liked it that way. Live and let live. Mind your own damn business. Then the devil moved in, right next door. Priscilla Vance, no relation, thankfully, arrived 24 months ago in a black Escalade that screamed, "My self-esteem needs validation from everyone I meet." Designer everything. Perpetually perfect blonde hair and eyes like a great white shark. Dead cold, constantly calculating who to devour next. Her husband, some hedge fund guy, was always traveling to the Cayman Islands, which meant Priscilla had unlimited, toxic time to make everyone else's life hell. Within a week, she'd printed glossy business cards naming herself the Architectural and Compliance Liaison, a title that existed nowhere in our defunct covenants. She started patrolling the neighborhood with a clipboard, that cheap, cloying jasmine perfume trailing behind her like toxic waste, taking photos, interrogating neighbors about property values. The click-clack of her designer heels on the concrete quickly became the soundtrack of impending doom. Her first target? My beloved custom-built cedar fence, the one Clara and I built together right before Piper was born. She declared the natural wood tone non-compliant with neighborhood aesthetic standards and demanded I replace it with white vinyl, or face a $50 daily fine. I'm a federal prosecutor. I smell fraud from 3 counties away. A quick county record search confirmed everything I suspected. Our HOA had zero legal authority to enforce anything. Even better, federal employees have specific protections against targeted housing harassment under Title 42, which, if violated, means serious jail time for the perpetrator. I drafted a polite but absolutely frigid cease and desist letter explaining why she could take her fake fines and shove them where her fake smile couldn't reach. That letter should have ended everything. Instead, it started a war that would nearly cost me my daughter, because I made the fatal mistake of thinking I was dealing with a rational human being. Priscilla's response arrived 72 hours later. Not a legal rebuttal. It was pure, unadulterated aggression. At 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, I woke to the sound of my irrigation system running full blast. I stumbled out in my robe, coffee in hand, expecting a broken valve. What I found was Priscilla standing in Clara's memorial garden, spraying liquid onto the root systems of her favorite climbing hydrangeas. "Morning. Your Honor," she chirped like committing botanical homicide was as normal as checking the mail. "Just helping with your little drainage problem." The chemical smell hit me like a punch, sharp industrial strength. Then I saw the label on her sprayer. Gravel pit road salt and bleach concentrate. The kind of concoction that could kill a redwood, let alone Clara's delicate plants. "What in God's name are you doing?" I managed, my voice raw with sudden rage. "Well, since you clearly can't maintain your property to standards," she cooed, her shark smile stretching wider. "I'm resolving the severe moisture and pest issue your unsightly yard creates. We can't have safety hazards impacting property values now, can we? Those hydrangeas weren't just plants. They were Clara's heartbeat still pulsing in our yard. Deep purple climbers she'd babysat through brutal Michigan winters, pruning them with her grandmother's antique shears. The week before cancer took her, Clara made me swear to keep them alive. "There is no pest problem," I ground out. "Oh, but there is," she insisted, giving one last violent spray that coated the leaves. "Mrs. Henderson's Chihuahua is severely allergic to soil nematodes. I've filed a formal complaint with County Health. Pure, malicious fiction. Mrs. Henderson lived 3 blocks away and owned a cat, not a dog. But I was learning that truth meant nothing to a sociopath drunk on imaginary power." She packed up her chemical warfare kit and strolled back to her sterile lawn. That night, watching Clara's hydrangeas curl and blacken in the moonlight, I made my first strategic move. I called in sick and spent the next 2 days installing a 9-camera security system. Motion sensors, night vision, cloud backup, every single angle covered. Years of prosecuting criminals taught me one thing: predators like Priscilla always escalate. The investment paid off in 48 hours. 3:15 a.m. My phone buzzed. There was Priscilla, dressed head to toe in black, creeping through my backyard with a bucket of cement and a stack of official-looking papers. Night vision captured her pouring the cement directly into the post holes of my fence, a permanent physical defacement, then carefully placing forged HOA violation notices under my porch light. The documents were masterpieces of suburban fraud, complete with fake neighbor signatures and entirely fictional meeting minutes. But she made one fatal error. She forged the signature of Mr. Chen, the sweet, elderly man I helped with his taxes, a man whose hands were so arthritic he could barely hold a coffee cup, let alone sign his own name clearly. I had everything a prosecutor dreams of. Video, clear criminal intent, forgery, trespassing. A slam-dunk case. But when I marched into the local precinct the next morning with my evidence, I discovered just how far Priscilla... 2 weeks after they stole Avery's car, Priscilla shattered the last line civilized people never cross. She went after my daughter. Tuesday afternoon, I was in federal court destroying a complex wire fraud defendant when my phone exploded with emergency calls. 12 missed calls in 30 minutes, all from Piper's school. The metallic taste of pure terror flooded my mouth as I listened to the frantic voicemails. "Judge Vance, Piper's having a panic attack about strangers in your house. She's hyperventilating. We need you here immediately." I abandoned my prosecution mid-closing argument and drove 90 down suburban streets. I found Piper in the nurse's office, pale as death, clutching her rescue inhaler. "Daddy," she collapsed into my arms, "there were bad men in our house. They had cameras and they wouldn't leave. Principal Morales looked genuinely shaken. Piper had come home for lunch and found 2 men inside. They claimed to be safety inspectors. When she asked for ID, they told her, Little girls shouldn't question adult authority. Then they kept taking pictures while she begged them to stop. The rage that filled my veins felt different this time. Not hot and explosive, but arctic and calculating. They had terrorized my child in her own home. Someone was going to pay in blood. The police, of course, said the inspection was legitimate, anonymous safety complaints requiring immediate investigation. But in their arrogance, the inspectors had left evidence, a business card behind our couch. Vance Property Assessments, LLC, registered that morning to a vacant lot address. The certified building inspector was actually Marcus Vance, Priscilla's unemployed cousin, whose only construction experience involved 3 DUIs. She'd created a fake company using her own name to justify terrorizing my daughter. That night, while Piper slept fitfully in my bed, I filed an emergency restraining order. Judge Reynolds, who knew Clara, granted it immediately. Priscilla was forbidden from approaching me, my daughter, or my property for 6 months. Violation meant automatic arrest and federal charges. I felt victorious for exactly 14 hours. The next morning, I woke to voices on my front porch. Priscilla was chatting animatedly with Lieutenant Davies, coffee cup in hand. When she spotted me watching, she waved cheerfully and dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "Judge Vance," Davies said, looking like a man watching his pension evaporate, "we've got a situation. Mrs. Vance says you threatened her life yesterday. She gave a performance worthy of an Oscar. I know grief makes people say terrible things. Eli, but when you told me you'd bury me so deep even God couldn't find the body, I had to protect myself." Then Davies dropped the bomb. "About that restraining order. Mrs. Vance filed a counter-restraining order claiming you've been stalking her, following her to church, threatening her life. Judge signed it 2 hours ago. The legal bear trap snapped shut. 2 conflicting restraining orders. A perfect legal he said, she said cluster that would paralyze the courts for months. But this time, her sociopathic cleverness had backfired spectacularly. Filing false police reports against a federal judge isn't local corruption. It's a federal crime that carries 20 years in prison. That night, I called in my last favor. "Jackson, it's Eli Vance. I need a deep financial background on Priscilla Vance. Something's not adding up about her motivation. It's always about money." "Eli, always." 48 hours later, Jackson called back. "Your suburban terrorist is drowning in debt, buddy. Catastrophic financial collapse. The escalade is 3 payments from repossession. And here's the interesting part. She's been collecting HOA assessment payments from your neighbors for 2 years. We're talking about $380,000 that should have gone into a community fund." "There is no community fund," I whispered. "Exactly. She's been pocketing every penny, using intimidation to keep people paying. Classic extortion scheme with a suburban twist. She's not just a control freak. She's a desperate criminal who needed money to keep up the facade. I had my case. Organized crime, federal jurisdiction, targeting a federal employee. I called in every favor I'd accumulated in 20 years. FBI economic crimes, IRS criminal investigation, and the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. While the federal machine mobilized, I quietly began organizing my neighbors. Old Mr. Chen, who had been threatened with deportation for his Korean War service, broke down when he realized the $2,000 he'd paid was a fraud. Sarah Rodriguez, the single mother who'd been working double shifts to pay a pool maintenance fee for a pool that didn't exist, cried with relief. I now had 27 victims willing to testify. 3 weeks into the federal investigation, Priscilla must have sensed the walls closing in. She called Lieutenant Davies and his brother daily. Our wiretaps recorded the frantic conversations. She was running out of options. Desperate criminals with nothing left to lose don't just surrender. They burn everything down and hope to escape in the chaos. The arson happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in federal court when my phone started buzzing. House fire at 413 Cypress Lane. Fire department responding. I abandoned the courtroom mid-cross-examination. The acrid chemical smell of accelerant hit me 3 blocks away. I found Piper standing on Mr. Chen's lawn, tears streaming down her soot-stained face as she watched 20 years of memories turn to ash. "Daddy, she sent bad men. They took my teddy bear, and the old oak swing is gone." But Priscilla made her final, most spectacular mistake. Federal ATF agents treated our home like a terrorism crime scene. Within hours, they found fingerprints on the accelerant cans and, most damning of all, Mr. Chen's doorbell camera footage showed Marcus Vance entering my house carrying a suspicious duffel bag. Marcus, desperate to save himself from terrorism charges, confessed everything. The FBI played me the wiretap of Priscilla's last call to him, 3 hours before the fire. "Make sure you use enough accelerant to destroy everything," her voice crackled, chillingly calm. "Target the basement first, where he keeps all his legal files." Marcus asked, "What if the kid comes home early?"